Panthers GM Bill Zito might be bringing in the talent, but head coach Paul Maurice is the one who has to shape them, have them buy into the system, and buy into each other. And he's made every player that's come onto the squad better, and he's going to have to do that tonight in game number 5. And can these two guys pick up their game on the road for game number 5 tonight in Edmonton? A big game number 5, where the winning team usually goes on to win the series 73% of the time. Let's hope the Cats' road record will stand strong tonight and they will come out with a W. Unfortunately, the game the other evening was not what we all wanted to see as a Panthers fan, at least just for one period, it was. After that, I wouldn't say it was an epic comeback by the Oilers, but more of an epic collapse by the Panthers. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Panthers Digest. I'm your host, Greg Andrews. As always, hit that subscribe button down below so you can stay up to date with anything and everything that has to do with your defending Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers. And for those of you who keep returning to watch the videos and have not subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. You'll get to be in the know when a brand new episode comes out, and you'll be one of the first to know that it is up and available for you to watch. So, I'm starting off this episode to highlight head coach Paul Maurice. I think he has been a little more of one of those unsung heroes in terms of being able to get his team to have the right mindset to move forward after, especially this series that has had 3 out of the first 4 games go into overtime. How does he do it? As a head coach, it is not easy in any sport to instill the confidence in your team after big losses, especially in overtime, especially when it happens on your home ice. So guys, we're going to jump right into this right now. This man is an unsung hero. Yes, he's, the questions are asked. He's got this great philosophy. He is a sportscaster's dream when it comes to finding sounds on tape. His quotes are just absolutely spectacular. Like I said, the philosophy that he brings, his quotes are just magical, and I love listening to him speak. But what I want to talk about is, where does he come from? How is he the man that he is today? The journey that he has had in the NHL since the mid-early 90s to where he is today has been one that has not been fraught with a lot of lows. He's just learned so much from the 4 different teams that he has coached in the NHL. He's coached the Hartford Whalers and Hurricanes, which are the same team, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Maple Leafs, the Jets, and the Panthers. He has learned so much through his 30 almost years as a head coach. I believe this is his 30th year, He's learned so much from all the ups and downs, learning from other coaches, learning from the front offices. Everything that he has had to go through as a coach has helped him grow and become this stellar, incredible leader of a team. Like I said in the intro, he is able to get every player that has come onto this team in the last 3 years buy into the system, buy into each other, and that is why they've made it to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Win or lose this one, it's still an incredible accomplishment what he has had this team do in the last 3 years. And as I said, Bill Zito might be bringing in the talent and pulling the strings on some crazy trades that I don't think anybody thought would happen. But Paul Maurice is the one that has to get these guys to play together. He is the one that has been able to create this selfless attitude on this team because he is empathetic and he instills confidence in each one of these guys, no matter what has happened on the ice. No matter if a player makes a great play or a bad play, it's always instilling confidence in this player. So as they move forward, it's that forget what just happened, move forward. We've got to focus on what's happening next, not what's happened in the past, because that's irrelevant to this point. We've got to push forward. And I know they've fought through so much adversity. They've been resilient time and time again, and a lot of people are talking about the quotes from the Oilers saying, oh, well, we were resilient. We just showed everybody how we can come back no matter what. The Panthers have done it more than anybody else in this Stanley Cup playoffs, more so than the Oilers have, especially in their series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the biggest example I'm going to tell you guys about is the Thomas Nosek when he threw the puck out of play at the very end that last 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes of that first overtime that the Panthers lost in game number 1. And by the way, the Panthers technically could have won this series and swept it had they not fumbled the ball, no pun intended, making it an NFL reference, had they not just tripped over themselves, made the mistakes of giving up leads. And we will get into that after we talk about head coach Paul Maurice. But they could have swept this series had they not taken their foot off the gas. And we're going to tackle that in a little bit. But head coach Paul Maurice, he's the reason why everybody is buying into this. The way he speaks to his players, like I said, that empathy he has, the ability to have that poise on the bench. He lets his players do the things that they need to do in the locker room. He lets his leaders lead. He even says, he's like, I don't really go into the locker room a whole lot because I let these guys kind of, figure these things out. I'll say some things on the bench. I'll say some things here and there, but I'm not going to be in there for the whole 15, 18 minutes of the period break. And that's the beautiful thing about this coach. So a little bit about him. He was drafted in 1985 by the Flyers, 252nd overall. Didn't play a whole lot, but was drafted. And he has now been a coach for 30 years. He has coached over 1,900 regular season games. And in total, he has over 2,000 coached games in his career. My stats showed me 137 playoff games. That brings me to 2,046. But I think that's more now because of the playoffs this year. And he was the youngest coach to reach 1,000 coached games at 43 years old. And these are some of the teams that he has coached. These were some of the numbers for their stats, points, wins, losses, ties, all of that through his tenure as a head coach. You could see a lot of things where he's made the playoffs many times, but he's also not been in the playoffs. And again, these are learning experiences for him that I think has made him a better coach. And you can really see when he is on the bench, he can be poised at times, and he has never blown up behind the Panthers bench in the last 3 years in terms of coming at an official. He's just incredibly professional. The referees respect him. He's allowed to put his points in. They listen to him. And you could see it on the ice. Everyone has this great respect for this man. So this is his coach, third all-time on the wins list at 916 wins. He's got a little bit to catch up with Scotty Bowman. Quenneville, he's almost there, and I think Paul Maurice will stick around for a little while. And I know it's a little bit ironic when he was with the Jets and said that, he was going to hang it up. He's not going to be coaching that team because he just says, it's just not the fit right now. It's just not working for him. It's just that the mindset that he had with, trying to win and do that, he's just not the coach for that team. And then the Panthers come a knocking at the door and got rid of their coach at the time who had a great season where they won the President's Trophy in 2021, 2022. But it's been all for the best. The changes that were made, and obviously the Tkachuk trade overshadowed the fact that Paul Maurice was picked up by the Panthers. But this was, I think, probably one of the bigger moves besides the player personnel changes that have been made over the last 3 years. Because again, every player, even those guys that they get as free agents that are down there, like the Thomas Nosiks, the AJ Greers, all of those guys have gotten better when they come onto this team. I believe AJ Greer just had one of his best seasons points-wise this past year. And all of his players speak so highly of him. And I'm going to show you some of the quotes that the players say about what he does for them, what he does for the team, and his ability to also make these really cerebral moves as the game is going on, puts this team into the position where they currently are as a perennial Stanley Cup contender for the last 3 years. And they'll probably continue to be that for years to come. Again, it's going to take a little bit more about what's going to happen in free agency because, yes, the players are the ones on the ice playing the game. But again, buying into the processes to everything that he is throwing out there that is working for this team, that physical style of play, which we'll talk about in a second, that is what he has had this team buy into. Let's be physical on the ice because that is what wins championships. And again, we'll get into this in just a moment. The man, the myth, the legend, his first time ever hoisting a cup, you could see the joy on his face. And one of the things that I wanted to really point at right now is the fact that Everybody keeps talking about, sometimes pointing fingers at him, saying he's a dirty coach. He's telling his players to go out there and rough up guys and this and that. No, he's not. He's telling them be physical, grind them out. Everybody in when we're watching the NHL playoffs and they're showing the preview and they hear him on the bench, I can't remember exactly what he says, but grind it out, have him wear down until game 7, and because that's how his mentality is for all of his players. He says, guys, we have to play the Stanley Cup Finals as if we're going to a game 7. That's what we have to do. It stinks because you got to think that, yeah, you're going to lose 3 games, but we have to have that mentality that every single game we've got to be ready for what's going to be thrown at us. Like I said, I'm going to get back into this and show you some of the things about the last few games and what to look forward to tonight. But one area I want people to really look into and start to understand about this man, excuse me, sorry about that, is the vilification of him as a head coach, which is completely off-put and wrong for a lot of the fans that are out there. And I'm sorry, you're supporting your team, I understand, but your team is not as physical as the Florida Panthers. Of course, you're going to be complaining about certain hits, certain calls or non-calls, whatever it might be. In the last game, we saw calls going for the Florida Panthers, but we also saw calls going for the Edmonton Oilers. I know the Carter Verhaeghe high stick. I'm going to say, yeah, the referees definitely missed that one. But again, they're referees, they're human. It's going to happen in any game. They're going to miss calls. They're going to make calls that probably shouldn't have happened. There's going to be embellishment calls that should have been called that weren't called. All of these things will happen in a game, but you can't vilify who he is as a coach because he's not telling guys to go out there verbatim and say, hey, take a shot at this guy. I want you to take him out. Kind of like what the Oilers were doing at the end of game number 3, where they were going up against, like I said, Tkachuk. They were trying to take him out, punched him in the face. 2 guys came after him. They were trying to wrestle with Bennett and get him to fight, and he tackled the guy to the ground. Then they had, Evander Kane high sticking Verhaeghe on the ground after, I think it was Wallman, took him out and slashed him in the back of the leg. Same thing with Corey Perry, slashing Mikkola in the back of the leg, trying to fight everybody. I mean, that's dirty. Paul Maurice is not having his guys do that. He's telling them to play a physical brand of hockey because some of the best teams that have ever won Stanley Cups were physical. That's the style of play he wants this team to have. And if they're physical, they will win. When they are more physical, they will win. But there are other things they have to do, obviously, some of these intangibles that have to be picked up better because they haven't been doing that in these losses. That's why the games have slipped away. But I'm going to tell you, all of you out there who are looking at the game of hockey and saying, oh, they're dirty, they're this, they're that, they're playing a physical style of hockey, and I'm sorry that your team is not being as physical. I'm going to give you some examples right now. I'm going to name off 6 different teams and tell you their physical players, the reason why they won the Stanley Cup. Some of them multiple times. The 74-75 Broad Street Bully Philadelphia Flyers, one of the most physical teams in NHL history. They bullied teams. They fought teams. That's what they did. Physicality, fighting, being aggressive. Okay? Boston Bruins, 70-72 in 2011. No more so than 2011. Zdeno Chara, Milan Lucic, their size and strength overpowered their opponents, and that is how they won. New Jersey Devils, 95, 2000, 2003. The neutral zone trap. Big physical guys on that team took over the game and they punished their opponents in the corners. That is why they won. And there are a lot of calls, I'm sure. Again, these were teams from early 2000s and earlier than that. But still, this is the game of hockey. The more physical you are, the more success you technically will have. I know in the 70s, the fighting and all that stuff happened, and today's game has changed a bit. And it's become a little more about player safety. But let's keep going. Los Angeles Kings, 2012-2014. Hard-hitting, heavy style of play, that rough, tough attitude, same as the Florida Panthers have today. Dustin Brown, Drew Doughty, setting a tone physically. They beat up their opponents. They won 2 cups in 3 years because of that really physical play. The Blues in 2019. Physical approach, like Ryan O'Reilly, Alex Pietrangelo, and Pat Maroon. They beat the hell out of guys. And what about the Anaheim Ducks with Chris Pronger and Niedermeyer? Punishing physical edge. Should I keep going on and keep dialing off teams that were ultra physical in the finals and they won because of that physical play? So don't come out here and say, well, they're dirty, they're this and that. Everybody now has something to say negatively and vilify the Florida Panthers because they've made it to the Stanley Cup Finals for the last 3 years. Like in any other sport, When there's a team that is consistently making it to the championship, people get frustrated with that team. They look for ways to vilify them just because they are great. As a team, they are great. Individually, these guys are great. Their coach is great. Their front office is great. The Panthers are the epitome of what the other teams strive to be today. For all of the 2.5, 3 decades that the Panthers had such great teams and then they just dropped off the face of the earth and were terrible, nobody complained about anything. But now everybody's talking because they're so great. And they could be for years to come. But I digress again. When we're talking about the way that Paul Maurice wants this team to play is exactly like the way these teams that won the Stanley Cup in the past have played. Be physical. That is what's going to win you hockey games. There are other things as well. And here are some of the quotes that some of his players have to say about him. He's open, he's honest, he speaks his mind. I don't think he holds back by any means. He's very smart. Knows kind of what to say and when to say it, and does a great job of motivating. That's what you want in your head coach. No matter what's happening in a game. Carter Verhaeghe, he's one of a kind. We see a sense of humor with the media, and he kind of has the same sense of humor with us. He keeps everything light, but makes you want to work, and for the right reasons for each other. At any given time, he knows what the group needs. It keeps us loose and focused at the same time. AJ Greer, every player that comes into this organization elevates their game and gets to a certain point where they're like, wow, why wasn't he like this in the other organizations? And it translates from the head coach. He's a lot of different coaches that I've kind of combined into one. He's kind of just a complete package of being able to motivate us and elevate our games mentally. And he does. And here's Coach Paul Maurice on how he got to this point and where he is right now. I spent a lot of years in this league grinding and spitting nails every single day. It's too hard to do. You have to be able to find places where you can laugh a little bit and enjoy it. Once you know everyone's going to work their butt off, it's easy to do. And that's what this team has been able to do. They've been able to work their butts off, and they buy into the system. Like I said, that is why they have been playing as well as they have been playing in the last 3 years. So now, I think there should be more praise for head coach Paul Maurice. Instead of everyone trying to vilify him that is not a Florida Panthers fan and saying that, oh, they're dirty, they're this and that. They're just more physical than your team is. That needs to be understood. Everyone needs to understand they're just a physical team. That is how they play hockey. That is how they grind it out. Like he said in last year's playoffs, you got to wear them down so that way in game 7, you're going to come out with a victory because they are just going to be beaten up, battered, tired, mentally just exhausted. And that's what they're trying to do. Again, treat this like it's going to go to 7 games. Hopefully tonight, he will instill that into their brains, and every single player on this team in their brain, he's going to instill that. He's going to make them confident. He's going to say, guys, don't remember game number 4. Move forward to game number 5 and envision what you're going to do when you're on the ice. How are we going to be better? How are we going to not do what we did in game number 4? Start off the game that same way would be great, but you can't take your foot off the gas. That is what happened to this team. They let their guard down, and as soon as Picard was, taken out of the game, and was put into the game, and Skinner was taken out, it seemed like they picked up the pace of play. Things started clicking, and I think the Panthers' defense was caught out of position so much because they were not flying around the ice like the Oilers were. The Oilers just seemed like they wanted it more. They were just not going to give up. They were going to make that goalie feel comfortable. Pickard looked really good. He made some big-time stops. I was going to say, I think it wasn't really on the defensemen, centermen, and forwards that really won the game. It was Pickard that won that game, or Picard. Again, somebody's got to clarify how to say his name. But that's the biggest thing. I think he's the reason why they won that game. It's not because they just fought through adversity and all that. I mean, they did. I'm going to give them credit where credit's due, but still, wholly looking at this, it was the goaltender change that changed the team mentality to push hard. So let's get in to some of the stats from that game, guys. So, 5-4 loss. Look what I circled there. I've always said this in so many of my videos in the past. The Panthers need to block more shots than their opponent. If they're able to do that, they're going to come away with a victory. I mean, there was a point in game number 4. I can't remember. I think it was Tkachuk who was going to take the shot. The puck was passed to him. The goalie was completely out of position. He waited. Instead of one-timing it, he feathered it and then waited that split second that allowed the two defenders to come together. And I believe it went off kind of like one of their knees was in front of the other, but they had perfect position to block that shot. That, to me, I think would have been the deciding factor in that game in terms of I think the Panthers would have ended up winning because they would have ended up having technically a 1-goal cushion at the end of that game. Maybe 2, depending on, again, we'll go through the goals in a second when they were scored. But I think it either would have been the Panthers winning by 1 because of that Reinhart goal, the very last seconds of the game, but they would have been up by 1. They could have won that game had that shot gone and hit the back of the twine. But let's keep moving forward. These are the stats for the Panthers. Face-off circle, they have been great. I know it was even. It was a 50-50 split for that game. But the time on ice, again, for the defense. It's a lot of playing, but this time it was down. Still pretty high for obviously Aaron Ekblad and Seth Jones. And I think that's one of the areas that Paul Maurice maybe is going to look at and say, all right, we need to fix things a little bit here and start evening it out. Because, I mean, I think you could put Mikkola out there a little bit more, that big body that he has, that great forward-checking ability. He's going to knock guys around, and I think he's going to really need that from him in this game tonight. And I think Aaron Ekblad is been running on fumes. Just to me, when I'm watching him play at times, he's pretty good for about a period and a half, and then he starts to falter a bit. He starts to slow down. He starts making some mental errors on the ice. So I don't know what's going on with him. I do think he might be playing a little banged up, but we'll see what happens tonight. And then Sam Bennett picked it up a little bit. He had an assist. Brad Marchand, not really doing a whole lot there. I mean, he was on the ice. You could see him flying around a bit, trying to make some plays. He had a couple of opportunities, but wasn't able to find the back of the net. Aleksander Barkov, 2 assists. And I told you guys, Matthew Tkachuk, I thought he was going to have a 1-1 game. Instead, it was 2-1. So I'm looking for him to, again, have another decent night tonight. I'm not going to say he's going to have 2-1 or 1-1. I'm going to say he's going to have a goal tonight. As for Carter Verhaeghe, again, I think Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett come out tonight not holding back anything. Both of them seem to play a lot better on the road, as we've seen. That's why Bennett has set the record for goals on the road in the NHL finals. In the NHL playoffs, that record for goals on the road. So we'll also see, I'm feeling like we're going to see a little more out of Sam Reinhart. He's been doing better in these last couple of games, and I think he's going to keep this flow into the game this evening, but they've got to be physical. They have to be better on that forecheck throughout the whole entirety, the whole 60 minutes that they are playing. They all have to keep it physical. They have to get into those corners and knock guys around. They have to be physical with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. I just think they just found themselves really flat-footed at the end of that game. That's why, from the second and third periods, it just looked like the Oilers finally snapped out of whatever funk they were in that first period. It was hard to watch as a Panthers fan seeing that happen, but got to take your hat off to them. They played better than the Panthers did, and they walked away with a victory. But I think the Panthers will come out tonight grinding to these guys. So these are the Edmonton Oilers. Again, I keep saying the time on ice is a big factor for both of these teams. The Oilers defensemen, their top 3 guys, had more time on ice than the Panthers did. And Connor McDavid has been playing almost 30 minutes a game. Will that end up taking a toll on him? Will he start feeling that fatigue, the soreness, getting beat up a little bit more? That's why I'm saying if it's a 7-game series, it's obviously going to go 6 regardless. If it goes to a 7th game, how much gas will be left in the tank for some of these players that are averaging close to 30 minutes a game? I mean, he looks good when he's out there no matter what, but when it's crunch time and they really need him out on the ice, trying to score, trying to make these crazy passes, crazy moves. I mean, every time he touches the puck, it's just, he dazzles. But I think our defense will do a better job like they did in game 3. I think Ekblad needs to throw him around a little bit, and they have to check him They have to do a better job, of forechecking as well as back checking whenever he has the puck, especially if he's getting into our offensive third. Right at that blue line, they have to stand him up. And I know it's scary to do for them because if he's able to get by with that puck, you're taking a risk unless you got a guy behind you. So I think they just have to do a better job on defense and stick to the game plan of what they were doing in the games that they have won, especially in game number 3, because everything just clicked beautifully for that team, and they allowed the Oilers to make the mistakes they did. So, game number 1, the Panthers were up 3-1. You could see the goals there, and then they ended up blowing that lead, allowing 3 goals. That's game number 1. Game number 2, same kind of thing happened. The Panthers were up 4-3. Ended up allowing them to tie the game. Obviously, that was the Corey Perry shot with, I think it was like 16 seconds left, just over 16, another squandered lead. And then we look back at game number 4 and the same thing. And this is eerily similar in a way. I know it was a different game that the Panthers got blown out last year, that 8-1 game. It's eerily similar to that, where the Panthers they blew out the Oilers in game number 3, but in game number 4, the tide kind of turned. And it was very similar to last year when the Panthers got blown out 8-1. The games got a little bit closer, but let's see if the Panthers are able to pull themselves together tonight. It's going to be a scary game for everybody to think about right now, but moving forward tonight, I'd say they're going to get it done. Here's a few more things that I'm going to throw at you right now. This is Paul Maurice on the series so far. It's been fast. Every board battle can turn into something, so there's a tension because both teams can score. Everything is dangerous all of the time. The mental intensity, the mental toughness of both teams shows the game's not going to be over until it is. We've had 3 of 4 games going to OT. These are 2 really good, really evenly matched teams, and he is correct, obviously. We've had 2 overtime losses, and they're painful, and we're flat now. It's best 2 out of 3. It's great for fans. I felt this way about the series last year. I think it's great for the game. You've got a Canadian team and a US-based team. You've got some of the best players in the world for sure. Incredible depth on both teams. And there's schizophrenic mood swings on the bench. You're going, and then you're not. I love the quotes by this guy. Just a absolute gold mine. Tkachuk on the tightest series he's played in. He thinks the 3 overtime games so far out of the first 4 games, and they had that with the Rangers last year, so those are the 2 toughest series that he has played in. And then Aleksander Barkov on if they're going to change anything heading into tonight's game. Not our game plan. He's saying their goalie played really well. He saved some big scoring chances, but it doesn't change what we're going to try to do on the ice. And I believe Pickard, whatever, somebody again, please correct me on that. I would appreciate it. I think he's undefeated so far in the postseason. I believe Pickard. And we'll see how he comes out tonight. They're going to nobody's picked the starter right now for the Edmonton Oilers. I'm sorry, the coach in All Black has not picked their starter yet. But I would assume it's going to be the goalie who's had the hot hand and helped his team win. I believe it will be Pickard tonight. I'm going to keep saying both ways because I don't want to be right or wrong. One way it's going to be right. He's probably going to get the start tonight. I really hope the Panthers come out, put their foot on the gas, and never take it off. Because if we have a 4th game go into overtime and they end up fumbling this one again, I think it's going to be the series. But I look for them to really bounce back because they've usually done a pretty good job of bouncing back after big losses. And if they're able to pick this one up, come back home with a 3-2 advantage, I think they'll close it out at home. I think they'll find a way to say, guys, they have everything to lose. We've got nothing to lose right now because we can go to game 7. Even though we don't want to play on the road, we can do it. They need to win tonight. I'm going to say tonight is a must win for this team because they're better on the road than they are at home. So I think if they win tonight, I like their chances to get their 2nd Stanley Cup in 2 years. But if they don't, I'm going to say their chances are going to be dwindling. And I hate to say that as a big time Panthers fan on this channel. It's going to be tough to talk about this team and say, hey, they still have a big time chance, this and that, because they're playing at home where the record is not nearly as good as it is on the road. But I do look for them to bounce back. I see them having a very good shot at winning this game tonight. I think they're going to come out and be very physical. They're going to try to get that mental edge again and frustrate the Oilers like they did in game number 3. But guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Panthers Digest. I am your host, Greg Andrews. Again, don't forget to subscribe down below. It is free. I do appreciate all of you for watching. Thank you so much for your time. And look forward to a big, physical, exciting game tonight. This has been one of the best series in NHL Finals history, and I think is going to end one of the greatest series ever in the NHL. So guys, thank you so much again. Go Cats!